occasional text messages and hangouts, being around people but feeling alienated at the same time, longing for connection but being stuck in limbo between intimacy and distance. You're nobody's closest friend. In fact, you may not even be a friend to yourself. If you're watching this, you've probably been in one of these situations or felt this feeling. This one where you feel like nobody's closest friend. You're an option. You're the second choice. You're not the priority in anybody's life. You long for deep connection, but truly, you fear it just as much. Friendships and connections are complicated because of how we treat ourselves and our expectations for relationships being different than others. When trying to connect with people, things get a little convoluted. In this case scenario, where you don't feel like you're anybody's closest friend, I found it's often accompanied by an inability to deal with love, to harbor hope without self-sabotage, and famously, we accept the love we think we deserve. And so it leads to this mindset, this feeling of a lack of connection and intimacy, this limbo state. Well, this often starts as a genuine desire for intimacy, right? You want to hang out with people, you want to go places, you want to do things, you want to discuss things with people. Once a week, twice a week, once every couple weeks, once a month. You want to connect on some level with other people. But somewhere along the line, this desire gets disrupted or unmet. Your career makes you anxious, and you start to save all the energy that you have and time for yourself. You start to isolate because of a loss you experienced. Whatever the case it be, this desire gets disrupted, yet it stays within us somewhere, and leads to a quiet desperation, meaning that you exist at one point in your life, longing for intimacy, but unable to give it, unable to participate in it. And this is what I mean by quiet desperation. And finally, this progresses to a shutdown, right? You convince yourself that there was no desire at all, and you live in a sort of denial. I've experienced both sides of the coin. I've felt like I wasn't anyone's closest friend, but I've also heard others express the same thing to me amongst my friend groups. During the times that you feel this lack of intimacy, at least in my case, I remember just not being open to it myself. Because usually when you withdraw from connection for some reason, and you don't wish to connect, you don't want to be exposed, or you don't want to show that to others, and so you live in hiding almost. You avoid a deeper vulnerability. The problem is that connection can help heal any issues that you are going through, and avoiding this confrontation will just reinforce the fear of being fully known and seen. So while saying and thinking that you're not anyone's closest friend, you're also simultaneously putting a self-induced cap on the amount of connection you're allowed. It's another negative loop that can lead to dark places. And as time goes on and you reiterate this concept and you believe that, you'll always be the second choice, you're never going to be closer to someone, it becomes a self-fulfilling negative prophecy. And the desire for connection doesn't just disappear. It transforms into a more desperate form. And I think when our desire for friendship, let's say you want to talk to someone more frequently, you want to hang out with them, you want to play soccer on the weekends, whatever it is, when that stems from a place of desperation after being isolated, after being avoidant for quite some time, the way you try to connect becomes a little more anxious, a little more controlling, a little more negative. At some point past this, the fear of connection, the fear of living, becomes greater than the fear of avoidance and detachment. Now, it's important, I don't want to reduce this to a kind of self-blame. There are periods of life where isolation is natural. You have limited time, energy, and you have circumstances that affect your friendships. But in healthy dynamics, I believe real friends will be there for you in these case scenarios. And you will inevitably feel like you don't have as much connection in these times. But that's less about what I'm talking about here. I think regardless of the situation, it's important to understand your own capacity for connection. That is, understand how it would look if you were to expose yourself fully to the world. Who would stay? Who do you wish to stay? Who do you wish to support and why? And I believe, again, just saying the classic "nobody feels like my close friend" prevents us from asking these kinds of questions and establishing the connection we seek. If you find yourself feeling that nobody's your close friend, maybe ask some of these deeper questions. Because we're pulled in two different directions often, and it's very hard for us to understand which way we're going sometimes. Because a fully lived life can feel as threatening as loss, you know? Hope can feel just as vulnerable as grief, and intimacy can feel just as dangerous as detachment. These all require a certain level of uncertainty and exposure and vulnerability. You know, living in this mindset where you're not fully alone and you're not fully connected, right? You're around people and you don't feel like you're there. You know, you talk to people, but you don't really feel like there's a conversation going on. It's this social limbo that I believe must be avoided. It leads to confusion and a sort of passivity about life and a lack of clarity in what's happening. In these moments when this loneliness or this feeling has developed, we still do crave connection once again, but it's from this place of grief or sadness. And I think in these times, because of the lack of clarity, we misplace expectations from us and other friendships. We try to fill all the uncertainty with whatever sort of reinforces our want to detach and draw away from people, right? If you constantly expect depth from surface level relationships or consistency from inconsistent people, right, you're going to cling to the wrong kind of connections and hold on to incorrect ideas of what relationships are, once again contributing to this negative self-prophecy. And so you can see how this initial, emotional state can distort how we look at relationships and misplace expectations upon us and upon others, and lead us to not know how to connect nonetheless with ourselves, but with other people that we once connected with or we once felt close to. And it's the fear of intimacy and the avoidance of vulnerability that permeates through this whole topic. And so, in my experience, an exposure is needed in these moments, an active participation in your life, right, where you can get involved again in your own life by asking the questions of how my relationships look, what I want, and what they would look like if somebody knew me entirely. I think it's good to risk being known in small ways and stop over-identifying with a pattern that may have started from a moment of weakness, like not being anyone's close friend. And try to choose who to invest in instead of waiting to be chosen. And so, even though I'm nobody's closest friend can feel like a conclusion, oftentimes I believe it to be a pattern that we've learned to live inside. And if that's true for you, I don't believe the way out is a dramatic or sudden change, but choosing little by little to step outside of it and expose the parts of yourself that you have been hiding little by little. And remembering that even though intimacy and distance both carry risks for it, that one will leave you much more regretful and full of sadness than the other. And if you've made it this far in the video, once again, thank you for all the support. I appreciate you taking the time to listen to my story, and I hope you take away something valuable from this. I wish you all the best.